Nicole Soul here with Blacktree TV. I'm here with journalist Susan Goldsmith and Dr. Ron Uscinski. They created a documentary about the baby shaking syndrome that's swept through the country over the years. Currently, there are 1,000 innocent people in jail serving time for baby shaking syndrome. Can you please tell us about your new documentary titled Syndrome?
Yeah, it's called The Syndrome. It opened yesterday at Cinema Village in New York City and Los Angeles at the Laemmle. It's on our website, thesyndromefilm.com. The film is the story of a group of doctors. I'm a professional career journalist who took my lifelong storytelling skills to this film, which is the story of this group of doctors who took on defending people in shaken baby syndrome cases and have helped many families beat these charges, but also have helped build a movement of people understanding that this theory is not scientifically valid and that the science for this syndrome has dissolved. And courts around the country are letting people out in these cases and overturning convictions in these cases because the science for the so-called syndrome has dissolved. And Dr. Uscinski is a neurosurgeon and one of the doctors featured in our film.
Right. Dr. Uscinski, can you tell us about your experience with the shaken baby syndrome?
Sure. I was asked by a colleague one day back in 1997 to look at a case, and I did. And the case involved a woman who had supposedly shaken an infant, and the baby died. And it was very clear to me from looking at the information that the infant had an old injury. She could not have inflicted that injury on that day. And I told him that, and he agreed with me. Which is pretty significant because he, in addition to being a colleague, was also a teacher of mine and was a world expert on mechanisms of head injury. And so I agreed to look into the medical records, and I did, and I defended the case. And it was not a pleasant experience, but you do what you have to do. And I thought that was the end of it. The next day I got into my office and the phone was ringing off the hook, and there were lawyers from all over the country calling me, asking me if I would look at cases of theirs, and I began to realize, what have I gotten myself into here? And I started looking more thoroughly at the syndrome, and actually had done a lot of the legwork before the first case, and I realized that you put all the papers in chronological order, and they go back to one single paper that obviously was misinterpreted.
Right.
It doesn't exist.
Now, before we started the interview, we did a little mock-up of how to hold a baby, just to show where injuries happen and where they don't happen. So can we do that again?
Sure we can.
Okay.
Let me start by saying one thing. One of the greatest minds of the last millennia was a man named Isaac Newton, and he had these rules of right reason. The first one is, nature is simple. And if you have two possible explanations for something, and one of them is long and convoluted, and you take two from column A and one from column B, and it only works on odd number Thursdays, and you keep having to modify it, that's not right. The second one is clear, simple, goes right to the point. That's going to be the right answer, because that's the way nature works. How do you pick up a little baby? You showed me earlier. You put your hand behind the head.
Yeah.
Every culture in the world does exactly the same thing. That's your answer right there. Why do you put your hand behind the head? Because they can't pick their own heads up. Because they have no neck muscles. You take a baby like that and shake it, you're going to get an injury to the neck, not the head. It's that simple.
Why that's relevant, Nicole, is because I looked as a journalist at cases all around the country. I spoke with lawyers and read about different cases. There's never been any catastrophic neck damage in any of these cases. So what Dr. Uscinski is saying is he figured out that people were being wrongly accused of harming these babies through shaking them, when in fact no crime, no assault occurred. Many other conditions, diseases, choking incidents are causing these symptoms in a child's head, and people were being wrongly accused. So Dr. Uscinski went into court along with other doctors and began to defend people. He forgot to mention that his mentor, whose work the whole syndrome is based, was his mentor, who the whole syndrome is based on was the work of his neurosurgery professor, Dr. A.A.V.E.
Interesting. So I know in the film you had Joshua and Samantha McCofer, who were currently undergoing a case. Can you tell us a little bit more about their story?
Yeah, they're in our film. Their names are Samantha and Joshua Coffer. They're a couple from Arizona, and when you meet them in our film, they are facing combined 60 years in prison for allegedly assaulting their infant daughter and their second child. And you meet them, and Joshua is a munitions maintenance man at a base, the Davis Air Force Base in Tucson, Arizona. You meet them and you hear their story. You see them being interviewed, parts in our film, and you see what happens to them in their case. And Dr. Uscinski, Dr. Patrick Barnes from Stanford, the head of pediatric neuroradiology, who's also in our film, comes to their aid, as does Dr. John Plunkett, a pathologist from Minnesota, who's also in our film. So you get to see what happens with their case.
You've been reporting on this for many years
Yes.
now. Why isn't there more national coverage about this?
There's been quite a bit. The Washington Post did a series last year about issues with this. There have been, PBS did a nice piece on the Lehrer News Hour. It's coming up, and there are questions and getting bolder and bolder. And I think our film is leading the pack right now for reporting about this. But there are multiple millions of dollars of money flowing into this whole world. Many states mandate that new parents get Don't Shake Your Baby prevention materials, which the Utah group that we feature in the film, we find out they've trademarked the materials. They've spun a for-profit off their nonprofit, and for 2 years of our looking at the film and reporting on their profits, they brought in more than $2 million. And the doctors we feature in the film as the key promoters of this sit on the board of that nonprofit.
So this is one big money scheme, seemingly.
It's very disturbing as a journalist to see that this has gone on, that the government funds this through NIH grants and other grants, private foundation money flows. It's truly disturbing, especially because it means that also that thousands of people are being prosecuted for a medical diagnosis of abuse or neglect for which there is really no science.
There have been cases where, parents have come up and they were innocent. Have there been any cases where parents were guilty?
Well, that's a great question, because we get into this in the film. People take plea deals in these cases, Nicole.
Right.
Now, that in and of itself is not unique, because most people in the criminal justice system take plea deals. What's unique in this setting is the discrepancy between the potential sentence and the plea offer is enormous. So you could be facing 5 to 15 and they offer you time served. You take a plea deal and say you did it. And in this case, because they have no science, they say because people took plea deals, this thing exists. But of course you have a gun to your...
That becomes one of their statistics. That becomes a confession, which is a statistic. See, shaken baby syndrome does exist. People are confessing to it.
And I put many years of my life into telling this story, and we tell it as a story. It's not a subject. It's the story of these doctors in this monumental monumental battle over science with huge stakes. 1,000 innocent people in prison. So see our film, get involved, let us know what you think about the film. But the first step is to see the film and understand what's going on with this.
And can you tell us where we can download it and see it in theaters in New York and LA?
Yes, you can see it at the Cinema Village in New York City, starting tonight for the next few nights, and at the Laemmle in Los Angeles tonight and several other days running. You can also download it on iTunes, Amazon Instant, and on demand literally everywhere in the country. Byron Allen's freestyle distribution got our film.
Wonderful.
We're for their first documentary acquisition and put us in millions of homes on demand across America. So we hope people will watch it and understand what's at stake and really get involved.